Hello guys, and welcome back to Research Reality. Today is a very special day because today, October 28th, marks the release of a new album from a prevalent artist on the wall behind me. Who is that artist? UK hip-hop artist Lowkey. Right here. Lowkey has for quite some time now been one of my favorite hip-hop artists, not only because of his competence as a rapper, but of course also because of the messaging, the historical context, the perspective that he infuses within the lyrics. They are incredibly hard-hitting, and this album, Soundtrack to the Struggle 3, has been one of my most highly anticipated albums of the year. I actually didn't know this was dropping today, so hey, surprise, surprise. Really, besides Immortal Technique dropping his highly anticipated album, The Middle Passage, there's really no other artist that really just captures my excitement in quite the same way that Lowkey does. And so, riding off the coattails of that excitement, I thought it would be really cool if we did a reaction / first impressions video of his new album. Granted, I've never done one of these before. I'm a little nervous about how this might turn out. Bear with me as I work out the kinks to doing something like this. But yeah, so we will just listen to the album. I'll kind of give my first impressions as we go through the track list, and we'll see what this album entails. Again, going back to the channel thesis, embedded within our creative culture is an undercurrent of unified resistance. Just what is that culture telling us? Well, we're about to find out. Alright guys, here we go. Lowkey, Soundtrack to the Struggle 3.
Somewhere there is a child. The child does not yet understand what this technology is, and that it will be used to kill him one day. But kill him, it will. This is a message to the sour and the powerful. Our crew will never bow down to you like cowards do. All we know, reach towards the sun like the flowers do. When they snatch his life, I wonder the truth Malcolm knew. I said that album's been in the making a quarter century. Over a decade later, I've still got the same energy, same insane enemies. It seems the pain never leaves. After Grenfell burn was never the same mentally. Even hope you feel these words when I spill these verbs. Never gonna silence me, they have to kill me first. But they know that though, so when I go back home, I know that every word is heard when I hold that phone.
Well, Lowkey is the most significant artist to emerge from the street in the United Kingdom. In my lifetime, I think, not just a hip-hop artist, not just a broadcaster, but a man I call the philosopher king. But when you hear him speak, he should be at the United Nations. He should be in Parliament on the front bench. This is a man of towering intellect, integrity, and eloquence.
Facts. Yeah, not a bad opening track, really. Definitely sets the stage for probably what will come next. He had mentioned how this album's been in the making a quarter century and he's still coming at it with the same energy. That, of course, is a callback to the first Soundtrack to the Struggle. Also mentioned the Grenfell Tower, that was a whole tragedy over in the UK, which he also did a song about that as well on Soundtrack to the Struggle 2. So yeah, definitely a lot of callbacks to his previous work, as well as, like I said, just kind of showing what's at stake, putting out music as such. Alright, track 2, Friend or Foe.
Says he's American. My best friend cares about people over anything. A strange day, late teens. First time I met with him, so knowledgeable. Felt like this guy knew everything. In the beginning, he taught me how to deal with snakes. Later helped with my career and how to build a base. He knows everyone. Always seemed wise beyond his years. I opened up to him face to face, cried a lot of tears. Where we went wrong, I'm not sure. It's hard to explain. But along the way, our relationship started to change.
I'm watching you, I'm listening to, I'll track you down to the end of your
life. Held my career on a shoestring to push for my dreams, but this guy here knew things you wouldn't believe. Not just new things, but old things you shouldn't repeat. He had a photographic memory as smooth as could be. In record highest bidder, let's just say. Snowden said he's spying on me for the NSA. I had always thought he had our best interests at heart. Turns out he only had these vested interests at heart. He's smart.
I'm watching you.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Your information's my business, why would you interfere? You weren't complaining when I put your little tunes in their ears. So what, I sell your information
about 100 times a day. You're not special. You know that there is nothing like my face. You love it, they all do. They stare at me for hours. Every time you try to leave me, it is clear to see my power. I'm a data collector, just came wearing a disguise. There has never been a culture comparable to my rise. You can go cold turkey, but who's gonna save ya? I'm addictive, and you're just a unit of data. Go back to playing snakes, see if I lose sleep. The truth is I use you. You thought that you used me.
That's good. That's good. All right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So yeah, that was definitely more of a narrative-driven / concept song. Lowkey's talking about his friend. He thought he was his friend. And at least as so far as I picked up, it seemed that at the end there, the foe, it turned out, was actually technology itself. There was that reference to Edward Snowden talking about NSA spying and how, you know, our phones know everything about us. You think you're using that, but it's really using you to collect all the data. So yeah, when I do the full review of this album, you know, eventually here in the future, we'll definitely look at that a bit more in depth and see just exactly where this song kind of takes that turn. But first impressions, that's what I got, and that's a pretty solid concept. So yeah. All right, track 3, Neighbor Skit. I might need to use a translator on this one. Yeah, when we do the review of this, we'll definitely look at what exactly is being said, what is this pulled from, and just what is the greater context, because obviously I can't tell you off the rip. But knowing Lowkey, that's going to be something very deep, something very impactful. Next track, Vietnam.
Those that have done the least have the most to say. And those that have done the most have the least to say.
Huh.
I don't know about you, but all my heroes fought colonizers. I don't know about you, but all my heroes fought occupiers. I don't know about you, but all my heroes fought occupiers. For the ones that will sacrifice and confront M16s, fighter jets and satellites. The same ones that will shoot at the enemy as they flee from the roof of the embassy. This is my love letter, you are truly the best of us. If you get a chance, say a prayer for the rest of us. I don't know, I'm the bars you grip for comfort instead of loved ones. Hear the songs you sing for heroes that were unsung. Everyone I saw was somebody, someone.
That song goes pretty well with the subtitle of the album, Soundtrack to the Struggle to be free, the struggle to not be occupied or colonized, the struggle to just not have an oppressive government over you. Coming at it from a few different ways, really. I think it was being imprisoned or just fighting against a occupying force, obviously. Not too shabby. Next track, Fertile Skit.
We have to be willing to think outside of the box and step outside the parameters of what is the officially sanctioned form of activism in this country. They tell us that resistance is futile. We tell them resistance is fertile, and we will continue to plant seeds for trees even if we don't live to sit in the shade of them. Thank you very much.
Okay. And obviously that's the end of a speech that he gave. Very poignant, very well said. Don't really have much to add. And the next track, No War. There might be a few anti-war songs behind me, and now we've added just one more. This is also featuring Styles P. Not familiar with Styles P, but he's on the track.
No war against Iran. Peace everywhere, love, yeah.
No war against Iran. I believe love all is the most high plan.
Is it just a pigment they didn't consider innocent? Villainous, insidious minions, really hideous. The city is clearly invidious when you think of it. Armor when you measure life in wars. No, you're getting older. Still marching on this quest, we will never falter. Clever soldier, we are the
That hook is really solid. You know, especially now at time of filming, you know, October 28th, Israel literally just attacked Iran like Saturday, and yet another retaliatory escalation. Hopefully things don't escalate. We're getting a lot of hints that Iran might just kind of back off at this point, hopefully. But just kind of funny that this song's like already hitting the nail on the head. But also just, you know, taking the focus away from war. Instead of spending all that time, energy, money, resources on waging war, how about we just focus on the issues at home? You know, get yourself straight. I think he said let's talk about rural issues and then let's talk about other issues.
Children in the classroom, you used to shush. We are the people on the plane getting accusing looks. Got you searching for a new button you could push. The moment منتظر الزيني through his shoes of bush. We don't have a choice. A little child's last breath is the saddest noise. Hurricane Katrina, they're sitting on roofs abandoned. 25% of humanity under US sanction. And any journalist that speaks out, they choose to ban them. They wonder.
That would be an interesting statistic to look up. 25% of the world population under US sanction? Huh, I'll look into that later.
What could possess you to fight the powerful, to colonize the mind and rise? It might empower you. Military industrial complex, it's a sour truth. They engineer the wars you fight and even Eisenhower knew.
Solid song. Very, very solid song. Alright, we're back after a battery change, and we will see how much the light changes. Been having a problem with the lighting as of late. Anywho, next track, Baby Steps.
Your children are not your children.
A word?
Every day you surprise me with intelligent things, ready for all blessings and lessons your development brings. I learn more from you than you could ever learn from me. First step, first word, first time I heard you breathe. Lean on me, you could always lean on me, my son. As I watched your heart beating on the scan, I knew you'd be born into things you wouldn't understand. We are not perfect, sometimes we'll get it wrong. It breaks my heart, there's things in life we just can't protect you from. See the difference between right and wrong, I pray that you can. Just know it's my heart that you take in your hand.
Okay, so yeah, that was a pretty sentimental song just about raising children, in this case a son. Always giving them the opportunity to lean on you, learn from you, understanding that parents are not perfect. Yeah, that was a pretty good, heartwarming track. Juxtaposed with the next song, Genocide Joe. Alright, yeah, bet. Let's hit it.
Between 1776 and 2019, the US carried out over 392 military interventions worldwide, killing millions in the process and condemning many millions more to a life of agony and despair. A new world is struggling to be born. A phoenix will rise from the embers of empire in Gaza.
Genocide Joe, you terrorize souls. When your eyes closed at night, how do you sleep?
So we haven't really had a whole lot of time to dive into the topic of Israel, Palestine, you know, the war in Gaza and now Lebanon, the back and forth with Iran. Of course, it's a very large topic. You can kind of see where Lowkey is coming from with all of this. Of course, Lowkey himself is a anti-imperialist individual, which I am myself. So I can see this being a bit more contentious. This isn't exactly the topic like, say, raising children, where it's like, yeah, you want them to lean on you and learn from you. People might have a bit harder of an opinion when it comes to a topic like this. But yeah, we will see what he has to say and go from there.
Genocide Joe, you better lie low. We're getting quite close at night. We feel you breathe. At night we feel you breathe.
You are the murderer, you are the terrorist, you are the criminal, a crime so devilish. Genocide, the aim, starvation is what the weapon is. America's woke president speaking like he's on sedatives. Him killed in the car, wonder what our eyes seen. You were giving interviews slobbering on an ice cream. Man squashed by a tank, seen his inside scream. Gaza's not a strip, it's the world's biggest crime scene. Barefoot fighters, Biden is a murderer, Trump is a murderer. Whichever way you look, political system circular. Sunak is a murderer, Starmer is a murderer. Whichever politician, the indifference is merciless. If they deprive Gaza the option of breaking free, then to me a jail cell's the most honorable place to be.
I'm gonna pause it there. So, again, very contentious topic, but not to say that I fully disagree with the sentiment that Lowkey's giving here, but at the same time, Hamas being the organization that it is, Sam Harris would give a very good overview of just when you have an ideology that is essentially a death cult, where they see the death of women and children and innocent civilians in general, and their deaths will bring them to paradise in the next life. You know, there's definitely something to be said about that. You know, this is definitely far from a black and white issue. Israel being the nation state that it is, despite the circumstances around how it came to be that nation state. Yeah, sure, like, whatever. Like, I can get on board with that in, like, modern times, I suppose. But the war crimes, the atrocities, just the brutality of their treatment of the Palestinians, that is where I draw the line. However, within that population, there are still people who join Hamas and then go on to commit terrible atrocities, just like what we saw on October 7th. That shit is fucking awful, and those people who perpetuated that atrocity should not be able to get away with it. In the same way that the people in the Israeli IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, their military, should not get away with the atrocities that they commit. And of course, sure, you know, when you have an open-air prison like Gaza, where Israel can stop food and water from getting in, yeah, you are going to create terrorists. You are going to harbor hatred in that population who might then join that resistance force. I mean, the United States Army in their, what is it? Their counterinsurgency manual, like the first chapter is, hey, you want to win over hearts and minds. You don't want to just go in and blast everyone because that will just create more insurgents. So yeah, definitely not black and white. I do disagree ever so slightly, just kind of off the cuff. But, you know, with an album like this, it's going to be very dense. There's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm just not picking up on first listen. Because it's so dense, it's going to require quite a bit of research and fact checking just to see what exactly is being said. And that's why I always say that I don't agree 100% with anybody on this wall, just like I don't agree 100% with anyone that I just actively listen to gain information. But that does not discount the facts that he is laying out when it comes to criticisms against the Israeli government. Lowkey is actually one of the better voices for dissent against that government. Anyways, we'll go back to the song and see what else he has to say about Genocide Joe.
Gaza genocide, the last gasp of the global north. They watch from the drones and they kill them with no remorse. You'll never know the hopeless thoughts as you hold a corpse. No matter where the blame is aimed, we all remember the last one, Genocide Joe, the fallen emperor.
What should we do? Like, drown? Like, commit mass suicide? Is this what Israel wants? And we're not going to do that. If they target us, charge at us, open door to door, to massacre us, I'm going to use that marker, throw it at the Israeli soldiers, even if that is the last thing that I will be able to do. And this is the feeling of everybody. We are helpless. We have nothing to lose.
And that's literally the exact point that I was making, where if you have people who are struggling just to get by, where they are literally cut off from, again, getting food, water, energy, and are literally oppressed, whether it's the Israeli settlements that are happening, or it's just Gaza itself. When you have people that are that desperate, like he said, you will just want to enact revenge on the people who have been doing this to you. Now for decades. There are entire generations of people who have grown up under Israel's shadow. Very hard topic, but again, moving on for the rest of this album. The next track is, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this, though I guess I could try. Mashili skit? We'll see what it's about.
So fortunately, look, this constant detachment, I mean, how many more politicians, ministers and lords are going to insult our dead families before something is done about what happened to us? I've almost completely lost faith in the world because it's always the same thing everywhere. We suffer and they prosper. And I've said this before, the system isn't broken. It was built this way specifically to benefit them.
Again, just talking about war crimes being committed. How can we allow this to happen? And there's no accountability for those who commit war crimes. And the next track, the killing of Corbynism? The killing of Corbynism? Sorry, I apparently can't read, despite the fact that I claim to be a writer. What does that mean? I'm gonna Google that. Corbynism? Does that mean like Jeremy Corbyn? It does mean Jeremy Corbyn. Political positions of Jeremy Corbyn. So he's from the Labour Party in the UK. So yeah, we'll see what the killing of Corbynism, Jeremy Corbyn, his philosophies, what that's all about.
Jeremy Corbyn, 251
In the end, there was no room for doubt. Nearly 60% of the vote, nothing other than a landslide.
We were wrong, 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 wrong.
Corbynism was more than a living organism, centered on one man, the vehicle of a broader mission. The main focus was how they could reform the system. Millions of people up and down the country saw the vision. Millions with dreams, the establishment killed them. Operation Clockwork Orange parallels with Harold Wilson.
We were wrong, wrong, wrong,
Corbyn, the type of person they would usually hate. Who's they? The trilateral security state. Remembering those times in flashbacks. Still the thinking's hazy. Army generals, Mike Pompeo and the Israelis file next to Lumumba. Lula Chavez, Mossadegh, Special Agent Starmer. You can figure out what was next.
So I don't know much about Jeremy Corbyn. I know that he is obviously a politician in the UK. So looking at the history, I would want to go back and see just what exactly Lowkey is getting at here. It seems like he potentially put him in the same category as a Patrice Lumumba or a Mossadegh figure. Patrice Lumumba being the leader of the Congo, who was a democratically elected president and was then killed for wanting to nationalize his country's resources, and in his place was installed a dictator. Just like in Iran, actually, in the 50s, Operation Ajax was an operation to overthrow Mohammad Mossadegh, who was again a democratically elected president and or prime minister of Iran, who a lot of people might not know was actually a democracy at one point. And we overthrew him in the interest of BP oil. A little hazy on the specifics here. But anyways, we overthrew him because he was going to nationalize the oil, but because it was in the interest of those oil companies to keep extracting for their own personal gain, of course, he was overthrown and we installed the Shah, which was a terrible tragedy. So yeah, I don't know if he's saying that Jeremy Corbyn is basically in the same ballpark as those figures as I just described. Again, I'm going to do a deeper review of this and see just what exactly he's getting at. There's about another minute left, so let's see what else he has for us.
Disturbing events, where does agent of state begin and a journalist end? It's kind of hard to stay calm when they murdered your friends. It's impossible to circumvent this permanent trench for every single decent person that was thrown to the wolves. Names like Ken Livingstone that won't be recalled. This is a history. That's
another thing, is that Lowkey throws out so many names. He references just so many people, events, places, time frames, that again, if you're not already familiar with the subject matter, it's definitely worth looking into just to see the points that he's actually making on a deeper level.
Won't be told in the schools. We thought that we could change the system. Now I know we were fools. They killed Corbyn.
Me just kind of spitballing here, it sounds like he was going to enact policies that, you know, are rather popular with the UK people. And then maybe it was almost like a Bernie Sanders kind of situation where the establishment just completely denied him any semblance of actually becoming the prime minister. Because of course anyone that will enact actual positive change tends to be an actual threat to the establishment, who of course is already benefiting from current policies. Alright, we got 3 tracks left, and the next one, Palestine Will Never Die.
وقفت طفل وحده والليالي. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, free, 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 free.
Can't get the image out of my heart when we've seen the bodies found in a mountain of parts. Netanyahu told you just another child of the dark. Clear it's gonna take much more than thousands to march, more than a speech, more than a poem, more than a track of music. Gonna take more than a sit down with Bassem Youssef, even bringing back ambassadors looking for his 4 children. The bombs leave structures that I wouldn't want to call buildings. My fingers pointed at this government, you all killed them. Tell me that you wouldn't take up arms if those were your children. Let me make the factor clear. The bombs were manufactured here, and they want the land that's theirs because of natural gas in there. Your death in the atmosphere.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, so that's actually a really big topic. So allegedly, I forget exactly where it is geographically speaking, but allegedly there was a huge natural gas reservoir found somewhere in Gaza on the West Bank. I don't know. Yeah, so there was a lot of talk when the United States was doing that military dock that was importing food for the people of Gaza. That was sort of like the United States moving in to not only help in a humanitarian way, but also to kind of secure that chunk of land. Could be wrong, I don't know. Yeah, so that's a point that isn't really talked about a whole lot, but it is definitely worth mentioning, because I think even at time of filming, we don't know just how big of a reservoir of natural gas this is, just that it is really, really expansive. and expensive. Yeah, anyways.
Little boy,
Also, fuck Benjamin Netanyahu. Oh my god. Like, you gotta remember that prior to the October 7th massacres, there were massive protests against him for him trying to outdo the judicial system of the Israeli government. Basically, he was just pulling a Trump and trying to stay in power when they were trying to put a cap on his power. And there were all kinds of protests against his government. And then October 7th happened, and then this ignited the war. This, of course, brought people to his side, because in times of war, people tend to gravitate towards their leaders. There's a pretty good chance that he's just expanding these wars just to keep his own people occupied with that instead of his own domestic bullshit. Or at least that's my general take on the issue, I don't know. Anyways.
Know how anyone can live after digging for their dead kids buried under bricks. Israel is a terror state, terrorists that terrorize. I testify my television, televise, I'm telling lies. This is not a war, it is systematic genocide. But whatever they try, Palestine will never die. When our grandchildren ask us, what did we do to stop it? I'm determined to say I did more than make music on it. That's why we shut down arms factories. You can try stopping us. Palestine action's the opposite of white phosphorus. We doctors are heroes of humanity. The sordid and as gory as this story is for now. I think you're populating Gaza for Ben Gurion's canal.
Yeah, so Ben Gurion is another person of note. He was either the first prime minister or at least one of the main founders of Israel. So I actually got this from, again, Immortal Technique. In some of his interviews, he's talked about how when you look at Ben Gurion's private memos and or just his letters that he sent to his family, he was actually very genocidal in what he was wanting to accomplish. So in a lot of ways, Israel just from its genesis had a lot of, say, genocidal tendencies. Anyways.
Alright,
that was a pretty solid track, just again talking about the devastation of Gaza, what these people have to live through, and just the crimes against humanity that are being conducted. Anyways, second to last track, Intifada.
Once upon a time in the little Middle East, there was a fascist settler entity on a killing spree. They pillaged their innocent villagers to steal their dignity. It's simple, it's literal miseries that dwell to industry. You can call it what you want, listen. This is more than just a when we shut down your factory, it's and shut down the university. Your politics is too cordial. It's intifada if your genocide's the new normal. Once upon a time across the cities of the West, millions were stressed to see civilians oppressed. By billions invested in these industries of death. They tried to talk, but the politicians didn't seem impressed. People aching to be free. This is more.
So again, this is definitely in that ballpark of fighting for Palestinian rights, just that drive to be free. And of course, the United States has a huge hand in what's happening there because we've supplied Israel with billions upon billions of military equipment. So when he's talking about weapons manufacturers, he's talking about those in the United States. He's talking about those politicians that sign off on that legislation. I don't think he's actually mentioned AIPAC yet on this album, but he has on previous albums, AIPAC being the huge Israeli lobby that of course pays politicians to help them vote pro-Israel. So of course this song is yet again just another brick in the wall of his perspective, putting out that resistance for what he sees as something that is very oppressive to a damn near powerless people. Those people, again, being the Palestinians, and again, separating them from Hamas, because Hamas, again, is a terrorist organization who, of course, just wants to see Israel completely demolished, and have said as such. I'm pretty sure that's in their charter. And yes, people might join Hamas in a way to get back at Israel, again, for the war crimes that they've been committing, but it's just stop dropping bombs on people. Stop shooting innocent civilians. That's all we're really trying to get at here, I think. Let people eat food. Let people get a good education. let people care for their families, give people economic opportunity, and we can move forward with a more cohesive global citizenry. Anyways, alright, not sure where we left off, but at the end of Intifada. Oh yeah.
We shut down your factory and shut down the university. Your politics is too cordial. It's Intifada if you genocide.
See, but like another thing about that, just like from the university standpoint of things, you know, it's like, it is a little preposterous that you have people saying, and I don't even really know how widespread this is. People are rooting for an entity like Hamas because they, again, just see the atrocities that Israel is committing, not even really considering who it is that they're rooting for, when it's like those people in that organization, they themselves are incredibly oppressive. They are not the same freedom fighters as someone who's just fighting, say, in Ukraine, who they're literally just fighting to survive and continue their way of life under an invading force. Again, there's just so much to this topic that we could just go on and on about all the different nuances of each perspective. But at the end of the day, that's really what this channel is about, is just sharing all of those perspectives, because I myself try to break out of that information bubble and seek information that I wouldn't get otherwise. Whether it's people like Lowkey, who I obviously love, have mad respect for, that's why he's on the wall the way he is. And even though I might strongly disagree with their viewpoints, I mean, like I said, Sam Harris has quite the perspective on this topic, but he is definitely more pro-Israel. But he does draw a much better line at talking about people who are rooting for the other side being Hamas. And again, just how preposterous it is that some people support them from communities that Hamas themselves would equally just like throw off a building if they could. The only thing black and white in this whole thing is just stop fucking killing people. Like, that's just like the biggest thing. Anyways, so yeah, that was Intifada, and now the last track, Two Kites.
That from time to time there arise among human beings people who seem to exude love as naturally as the sun gives out heat.
Two lovers gazing out at the sunset, but between them still so much unsaid. Under occupation, made impossible choices, both traumatized from sounds of the horrible voices, feeling too deep for them to put into words. Freedom from the occupiers who would bully and curse. He used to say, if I survive, this is 'cause of you. She looked into his eyes, said, you hear me too. If you were ever to die, it would kill me too. It would kill me too. Just two kites in the sky. Two kites in the sky. She was standing in their eyes, met a drone struck next to her a lorry. In a flash of a moment, it was everywhere, her body. He fell to his knees, couldn't believe what he sees. She was his salam, how could they take away his peace? Now sometimes he thinks he spots her out the side of his eye when he's looking up at those two kites. They used to say, if I survive, this is 'cause of you. She looked into his eyes, said, you hear me too. Two kites in the sky, in the sky, in the sky.
Well, so that was a pretty touching song that goes again with the theme of the album. You know, people living under some kind of occupation, people living under some kind of regime that is oppressing them. You had two lovers, and they were doing the best that they could with the life that they had until one was unfortunately killed by, again, that occupying force. So yeah, again, this is not the full review of the album. We will still do another full in-depth review, really kind of diving into the lyrics quite a bit more. But I did want to take the opportunity to kind of do a first impressions video, the first one of its kind for the channel. Obviously, Lowkey has a number of opinions and a perspective on a number of different topics, but this album in particular definitely hones in on Israel-Palestine, which is the struggle that he chose to write the most about, for obvious reasons, nonetheless. And you might see that various artists on the wall might have a few select topics that they really hone in on, kind of becomes their shtick or their niche. But Lowkey being one of the better ones, like I said, you know, when you really analyze his lyrics, when you really break down exactly what he's saying and fact check what he's saying, there's going to be a lot of information there. So yeah, guys, that's the video, really. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for sticking around if you made it this far. Definitely leave a comment down below if you liked what you heard of this album. Have you heard this album yourself? What was your favorite track on the album? Or even what was your least favorite track on the album? Do you agree with the assessments that were given during this video? And again, as always, if you like the vibe, definitely like and subscribe. Let me know if there's an artist on the wall that you want to see me do a full-scale review of next. Alright guys, thank you again so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this first impressions of Soundtrack to the Struggle 3. And until then, we will see you on the next video. Later.